Captain Jake Morrison stared out the window of his ship at the planet below. Kepler 442b looked like any other dead rock floating in space. No life, no water, just gray stone and dust. But something was different about this world. The long range. Scans showed structures down there. Big ones. Lisa, what do you make of those readings? Jake asked his science officer. Lisa Park looked up from her computer screen. Her dark hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her brown eyes showed excitement. Captain, these structures are massive. Some of them are over 2 miles tall. The metal composition is unlike anything we have seen before. Jake nodded and turned to his engineer. Danny, can we land safely down there? Danny Cole, a big man with rough hands and a gray beard, checked his instruments. The atmosphere is thin, but breathable with suits. Landing should be easy enough. But sir, I have to ask why we are bothering with another dead world. It was a fair question. Jake's ship, the Horizon's Edge, had been mapping dead planets for 3 months. The Galactic Survey Corps wanted detailed records of every system in this sector. Most humans thought it was boring work, but Jake enjoyed the peace. After years of being looked down on by other alien species, he liked the quiet of empty space. Orders are orders, Danny. Besides, when was the last time we found structures this big on a survey mission? Amy Chun, the young communications officer, spoke up from her station. Captain, I am picking up some strange energy readings from the surface. Very faint, but they are there. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Energy readings meant technology. Technology on a dead world usually meant one thing: ancient ruins. The galaxy was full of them. Most belonged to species that had died out millions of years ago. Humans were still new to space travel compared to the other races. They had only been exploring the galaxy for about 200 years. All right, people, gear up. We are going down to take a look. 2 hours later, Jake stood on the surface of Kepler 442b with his team. The structures around them were incredible. Smooth metal towers rose into the thin atmosphere like giant needles. The metal had a strange blue-green color that seemed to shift in the light. Between the towers, smaller, buildings formed perfect geometric patterns. This is amazing, Lisa said, running her scanner over one of the walls. Captain, the construction techniques here are far beyond anything the current galactic powers can do. This makes Zephyrian architecture look like children's blocks. Danny was examining a doorway that was clearly built for humans. Boss, look. At this, these doors are the right size for us. Not too tall like Zephyrian buildings, not too short like Corvin structures. These were made for people our size. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. That could just be coincidence, Danny. I do not think so, sir, Amy said, pointing her scanner at a section of wall. Look at these symbols. They are not like any alien writing I have seen in the databases, but some of them ... They look almost familiar. Lisa was already working on a larger scanner, trying to get deeper readings from the structure. Captain, you need to see this. I am detecting organic traces embedded in the metal itself. This technology uses biological components as part of its design. What kind of biological components? Jake asked. Lisa's face went pale as she read her scanner. Human DNA, sir. This entire structure has human genetic material woven into its very foundation. The team stood in shocked silence. Jake felt like the ground was moving under his feet. That is impossible. Humans have only been in space for 200 years. These ruins look thousands of years old. 10,000 years old, to be exact, Lisa said, double-checking her readings. Captain, I have never seen anything like this. The genetic patterns are clearly human, but they are embedded so deeply into the technology that they must have been part of the original construction. Danny scratched his beard. So either humans built this place 10,000 years ago, or someone else was using human DNA in their construction projects. Amy was examining more symbols on a nearby wall. Captain, I think I can make out some of these markings. They look like an early form of English. Very old, but still recognizable. Jake walked over to look at the symbols Amy had found. She was right. The markings were strange, but he could see the resemblance to human writing. One symbol looked like it might mean home. Another could be star or journey. Lisa, expand your scan. I want to know how far these structures extend. Lisa worked for several minutes, then looked up with wide eyes. Sir, this is not just a small outpost. The structures extend for hundreds of miles in every direction. This was a major city, maybe even a capital. A human capital? 10,000 years ago? Jake shook his head. That would mean humans had advanced space travel and city-building technology thousands of years before our recorded history says we even discovered fire. There is more, Captain, Lisa continued. I am detecting similar energy signatures from orbit. There are structures on this planet's 3 moons as well. And, sir, the power source for all of this. It is still active. Jake stared at the massive towers around them. If Lisa was right, then everything humans believed about their own history was wrong. They were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were not the young, weak species that other aliens treated them as they had been here before. They had built cities that made current technology look primitive. Amy, send a message back to headquarters. Tell them we need a full archaeological team out here immediately. Yes, sir. What should I tell them we found? Jake looked around at the impossible city surrounding them. Somewhere in these ruins were answers to questions humanity had never thought to ask. Who were they really? Where had they come from? And if humans had built all this thousands of years ago, what had happened to make them forget? Tell them we found evidence that changes everything we know about human history. And Amy? Yes, Captain? Mark this transmission as top priority. Something tells me the galaxy is not going to like what we have discovered here. As the sun set over the ancient human city, Jake Morrison realized that his simple survey mission had just become the most important discovery in human history. The question was, what else had humanity forgotten about itself? 3 weeks after leaving Kepler 442b, the Horizon's Edge docked at New Terra Station. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the busy corridors carrying a data pad filled with evidence that could change human history. Behind him, Lisa Park carried sealed sample containers while Danny Cole and Amy Chun pushed carts loaded with scanning equipment. The space station buzzed with activity. Human traders mixed with tall, elegant Cepharians in their flowing robes. Short, stocky Corvins in military uniforms moved through the crowds with purpose. The thin, pale Nexus representatives glided silently between groups, their large eyes missing nothing. To most people in the galaxy, humans were just another species, trying to make their way in a crowded universe. President Carol Williams sat behind her desk in the government sector, reading Jake's report for the 3rd time. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. Running humanity's scattered colonies was not an easy job, especially when the other species treated humans like children. Captain Morrison, this report is impossible, she said when Jake and his team entered her office. You are telling me that humans built advanced cities 10,000 years ago? We have clear records of human development. We barely had metal tools. 10,000 years ago. Jake placed his datapad on her desk. Ma'am, I know how it sounds, but the evidence is clear. The DNA embedded in those structures is human. The writing is an early form of our language. Everything points to an advanced human civilization that we somehow forgot about. Lisa stepped forward. President Williams, I have run every test I can think of. The genetic markers are definitely human, and the age dating is accurate. These ruins are older than any known human settlement by thousands of years. President Williams rubbed her temples. Even if this is true, what does it mean? So humans had some advanced settlements in the past and lost the technology. That happens to species all the time. It is bigger than that, ma'am, Amy said. The energy readings suggest this was not just one settlement. The technology network extends across multiple star systems. We are talking about an empire. Before President Williams could respond, her communication device beeped. Her assistant's voice came through the speaker. Ma'am, we have urgent calls. Coming in from the colonies on Titan 7, Ross 128, and Kepler 438c. They all report finding similar ancient structures. The room fell silent. Jake felt his heart racing. If other colonies were finding the same thing, then this was not just one lost city. This was proof of something much larger. President Williams activated her main communication screen. Within minutes, she was speaking with colony leaders from across human space. The reports were all the same. Ancient structures with human DNA signatures. Technology that was thousands of years beyond current capabilities. Writing that looked like old Earth languages. Dr. Alex Rodriguez joined the conference call from the research station on Europa. He was humanity's top expert on ancient alien civilizations, a thin man with wild gray hair and excited eyes. President Williams, this is the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history. We need to organize a full investigation immediately. Dr. Rodriguez, how is this possible? Our historical records go back 15,000 years. There is no mention of any advanced human space travel. That is exactly what makes this so important, Dr. Rodriguez said. Something happened to erase this civilization from our records. Not just the technology, but the memory of it. That kind of systematic forgetting does not happen naturally. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were learning about humanity's discoveries. In the crystal spires of the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Marcus Vex read intelligence reports with growing concern. The Zephyrians had always considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. The idea that primitive humans might have once surpassed them was unthinkable. In the metal fortresses of the Corvan hegemony, War Chief Thane studied tactical reports. If humans had once commanded advanced military technology, they might still have access to it. The Corvans had built their empire on being the galaxy's strongest military force. They could not allow humans to challenge that position. The Nexus, Consortium's leaders gathered in their hidden council chambers. Prime Director Kane reviewed the data with his cold, calculating mind. The Nexus controlled galactic trade and information. If humans had once been a major power, it could disrupt the careful balance the Nexus had spent centuries creating. Back on New Terra, Dr. Rodriguez arrived with a team of scientists and archaeologists. President Williams gave him unlimited resources to investigate the human ruins. Within days, teams were working on a dozen different worlds, carefully excavating the ancient structures. The breakthrough came on Kepler 442b, where Jake's original discovery had started everything. Dr. Rodriguez's team found a chamber deep inside the largest tower. The walls were covered with complex patterns of lights that pulsed with a steady rhythm. It looks like some kind of computer system, Lisa said as she ran her scanners over the glowing patterns. But it is more advanced than anything we have. Today, Dr. Rodriguez studied the patterns carefully. These are not just decorations. This is a user interface. The question is how to activate it. Amy Chun, who had been studying the ancient writing, noticed something. Dr. Rodriguez, look at this symbol here. It looks like the same marking we found near the entrance. I think it means begin or start. Dr. Rodriguez placed his hand on the symbol. The entire chamber filled with light. The walls came alive with moving images and streams of data. Then a voice spoke, clear and unmistakably human. Identity confirmed. Genetic markers match approved personnel. Welcome back. I am a TLAS, Guardian System of the Terran Dominion. I have been waiting for your return for 9,743 years. The team stared in shock. An artificial intelligence, speaking perfect English, claiming to be from an ancient human empire. Jake felt like the universe had turned upside down. Atlas, Dr. Rodriguez said carefully, can you tell us what happened to the Terran Dominion? The AI's voice carried a sadness that seemed impossible for a machine. The Dominion fell during an event we called the Silence. Our empire, which spanned half the galaxy, was destroyed in a single generation. Our colonies were abandoned. Our fleets disappeared. And somehow, all memory of our greatness was erased from galactic history. How is that possible? Jake asked. That, Captain Morrison, is the question I have been trying to answer for nearly 10,000 years. But now that you have returned, perhaps together we can discover the truth. And perhaps we can reclaim what was once ours. As Atlas spoke, Jake realized that humanity's quiet existence on the edge of galactic civilization was about to end. They were not newcomers to the stars. They were the rightful heirs to an empire that had once ruled the galaxy. The only question was, who had taken it away from them, and why? Atlas guided human exploration teams to 17 different star systems over the next 2 months. Each location revealed more pieces of humanity's forgotten empire. On the world of Kepler 186f, they found massive shipyards floating in space. Like metal cities, the construction bays were large enough to build vessels the size of moons. Lieutenant Commander Beth Anderson led the military teams that explored these sites. She was a tough woman with short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. Beth had spent her career commanding small patrol ships that barely rated respect from alien fleets. Now she stood in the control room of an ancient human shipyard, watching holographic displays show ships that could dwarf entire enemy fleets. Atlas, these shipyard records show vessels over 50 miles long, Beth said, reading the alien symbols that Atlas had taught them to understand. That is larger than anything currently flying in galactic space. The Terran Dominion built for permanence, Commander Anderson. Atlas replied through the shipyard's communication system. Our dreadnoughts were designed to serve for thousands of years. Many are still waiting in hidden storage facilities. Beth felt her pulse quicken. Hidden storage facilities? Follow the coordinates I am sending to your navigation system. But, Commander, I must warn you. Activating Dominion military. Assets will not go unnoticed by the current galactic powers. 3 days later, Beth's team stood before a massive door carved into an asteroid in the Vega system. The asteroid looked ordinary from the outside, but a TLAS's codes opened hidden passages that led deep into its center. Inside, they found something. That took Beth's breath away. Ships, dozens of them, each one larger and more advanced than anything in current human fleets. The smallest vessels were the size of modern battleships. The largest was a monster that stretched for miles, its hull covered in weapon systems that Beth did not recognize. At Tile Ace, what is that ship? She asked, pointing at the giant vessel. That is the Eternal Vigilance, a Dominion dreadnought. It was designed to defeat entire enemy fleets single-handedly. Its main weapons can destroy planets. Its shields can withstand the explosion of a star. Beth walked closer to the massive ship. Even powered down, it radiated an aura of deadly purpose. Can we activate it? The Eternal Vigilance will respond to properly authorized personnel. You carry the genetic markers of Dominion citizens. It will accept your command. When Beth placed her hand on the ship's access panel, the entire vessel came to life. Lights flickered on throughout its length. The sound of massive engines warming up echoed through the storage facility. Beth felt a thrill of power unlike anything she had ever experienced. Meanwhile, news of humanity's discoveries was spreading across the galaxy. The reaction was not what humans had expected. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Emperor Marcus Vex called an emergency session of his council. The tall, elegant aliens had always considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. Learning that humans had once built technology that made Zephyrian achievements look primitive was deeply disturbing. "This cannot be allowed," Emperor Vex declared, his voice echoing through the crystal chamber. "If humans begin to reclaim their ancient technology, they will upset the natural order of galactic civilization." In the metal fortress cities of the Corvan hegemony, War Chief Thane studied intelligence reports with growing alarm. The Corvans had built their power on military might. If humans had access to weapons that could destroy planets, Corvan dominance would be threatened. "Prepare our fleets," Thane ordered his generals. "If humans become a military threat, we must act before they grow too strong." The Nexus Consortium's response was more subtle, but equally concerned. In their hidden council chambers, Prime Director Kane and his advisors calculated the economic impact of humanity's resurgence. "Our trade networks depend on the current balance of power," Kane said, his pale features showing no emotion. "If humans reclaimed their ancient empire, they could disrupt centuries of careful planning." Back in human space, Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that changed everything. While studying the records Atlas had provided, he found references to something called the Silence. But the more he researched, the more he realized that what had happened to humanity was not a natural disaster. "President Williams, you need to see this," Dr. Rodriguez said during an emergency meeting on New Terra. The Silence was not a plague or a war or a natural catastrophe. It was a deliberate attack designed to erase humanity from galactic history. President Williams leaned forward in her chair. "What do you mean, erased?" "Someone systematically destroyed human records, abandoned human colonies, and somehow made the entire galaxy forget that humans had ever been a major power. This was not random destruction. This was planned erasure." Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral after his discovery, studied the data Dr. Rodriguez had found. Who could do something like that? Who has the power to make an entire galaxy forget? That is what we need to find out, Dr. Rodriguez said. But Atlas has been searching for the answer for nearly 10,000 years. Whatever did this to humanity is still out there. As human colonies began to integrate ancient technology into their daily lives, the changes were dramatic. Worlds that had struggled to grow food suddenly had terraforming devices that could transform barren rock into fertile farmland in weeks. Ships that had taken months to travel between stars now crossed the galaxy in days, using recovered Dominion engines. The other galactic species watched these changes with growing fear. Humans who had once been treated as second-class citizens were now displaying technology that made their former masters look primitive. Trade negotiations that had always favored alien interests suddenly shifted as humans gained access to manufacturing techniques that could produce goods faster and cheaper than anyone else. Beth Anderson, now commanding a small fleet of recovered Dominion vessels, received reports from across human space. Every day brought news of new discoveries, new technologies, new capabilities that humanity had forgotten it possessed. But with each discovery came new questions. If humans had once been so powerful, why had they allowed themselves to be erased? Who had the capability to systematically destroy an empire that spanned half the galaxy? And most importantly, were those responsible still active? ATLAS provided fragments of information, but even the ancient AI had gaps in its memory. "There are records I cannot access," ATLAs admitted during one of their conversations. "Critical data about the Silence has been sealed away." Finding those records may be the key to understanding what happened to the Terran Dominion. As tensions rose across the galaxy, Jake realized that humanity was approaching a crossroads. They could try to peacefully integrate their recovered technology and take their place as equals among the galactic powers. Or they could reclaim their ancient position as the dominant force in galactic civilization. The choice might not be theirs to make. Intelligence reports suggested that several alien species were already mobilizing their fleets, preparing for what they saw as an inevitable conflict with a resurgent humanity. Jake looked out at the stars from the bridge of his new flagship, a recovered Dominion cruiser that could outfight anything currently in service. Somewhere out there were the answers to humanity's forgotten past. But finding those answers might require going to war with the entire galaxy. The question was no longer whether humanity could reclaim its ancient might. The question was whether the galaxy would allow them to do so peacefully. President Carol Williams stood before the combined Human Colonial Assembly, her voice carrying across the communication networks to every human settlement in the galaxy. Behind her, holographic displays showed the recovered ships, the ancient cities, and the growing strength of humanity's rediscovered heritage. Today, we reclaim our rightful place among the stars, she declared. For too long, humanity has been treated as newcomers to galactic civilization, but we are not newcomers. We are the rightful heirs to the Terran Dominion, and it is time the galaxy remembered who we truly are. The announcement sent shockwaves across human space and beyond. Williams appointed Admiral Ryan Clark to command the rapidly growing human fleet. Clark was a veteran officer with gray hair and steady hands, someone who had spent decades commanding small ships that barely rated notice from alien fleets. Now he found himself in charge of vessels that could defeat entire enemy armadas. Admiral Clark, your mission is clear, Williams told him during their private meeting. Prepare our forces, but avoid conflict if possible. We want to reclaim our position through strength, not conquest. Clark nodded, but both of them knew that war was becoming more likely each day. Intelligence reports showed alien fleets moving throughout the galaxy, taking defensive positions around their most important worlds. The galactic response was swift and unified. Emperor Marcus Vex of the Zephyrians called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Within days, the Zephyrian Empire, the Corvan Hegemony, and the Nexus Consortium announced the formation of the United Species Alliance. Humanity's claims threaten the stability of galactic civilization, Emperor Vex announced. We cannot allow one species to dominate others based on ancient history. Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, tried desperately to prevent the coming war. He traveled to Zephyrian space aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, hoping to convince the alien leaders that humanity wanted partnership, not domination. We do not seek to rule over other species, Jake told the emergency council session. We simply want recognition of our true heritage and an equal voice in galactic affairs. War Chief Thane of the Corvins stood up, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. Admiral Morrison, your people now command weapons that can destroy worlds. You speak of equality, but you hold the power of gods. How can there be equality when one side can erase the others at will? Jake tried to find words that would ease their fears, but he could see the suspicion and terror in their eyes. The other species had spent centuries believing they were humanity's superiors, learning that humans had once ruled half the galaxy, and might do so again was more than they could accept. The fragile peace shattered 3 days later. Corvan forces attacked the human archaeological site on Kepler 220d, claiming it posed a threat to galactic security. The Corvins sent a full battle group, 12 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and 2 massive dreadnoughts. The only human ship in the system was the Retribution, a recovered Dominion destroyer commanded by Captain Lisa Park. Lisa had been promoted after her work with the original Discovery team. Now she faced an impossible situation. One ship against an entire enemy fleet. "Captain Park, this is War Chief Thane," came the transmission from the Corvin flagship. "Surrender your vessel and evacuate the archaeological site. You have 10 minutes to comply." Lisa looked at her crew. They were outnumbered 50-1. By any reasonable calculation, they should surrender immediately. But the Retribution was not a reasonable ship. It was a product of the ancient Terran Dominion, built with technology that the current galaxy had forgotten was possible. "All stations, battle ready," Lisa ordered. "Let us show them what human engineering can do." The battle lasted exactly 7 minutes. The Retribution's shields absorbed everything the Corvin fleet could throw at them without even flickering. Its weapons, firing beams of compressed dark matter, cut through enemy ships like paper. The massive Corvin dreadnoughts, pride of their fleet, exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the shooting stopped, Lisa's ship was undamaged. The Corvin battle group was gone. 51 enemy vessels destroyed by a single human destroyer. That was 10,000 years old. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy in hours. Humanity had not just won a fight. They had demonstrated technological superiority that bordered on the impossible. Fear replaced suspicion in the minds of alien leaders. Atlas revealed more disturbing information to Dr. Rodriguez during their ongoing research. The entities responsible for the silence were called the Architects, the ancient AI explained. They were an older race, one that had manipulated galactic civilization for millions of years. What did they want? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Control. The Architects feared any species that showed unlimited potential. Humanity's rapid advancement and refusal to accept limits made us a threat to their vision of galactic order. So they orchestrated our fall and erased us from history. Dr. Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. Atlas, you keep talking about them in the past tense. Are the Architects gone? There was a long pause before Atlas answered. I wish they were, Dr. Rodriguez, but my analysis of current galactic politics suggests they're still active. Still pulling strings. Still ensuring that no single species becomes too dominant. Working around the clock, Dr. Rodriguez's team discovered evidence that confirmed a TLA-CIS fears. Hidden communication networks, subtle influence on trade agreements, and mysterious advisors who appeared in alien governments throughout history. The Architects had not disappeared. They had simply learned to hide better. President Williams. The Architects are still active, Dr. Rodriguez reported during an emergency meeting. They have been guiding galactic politics for thousands of years, making sure no species gains too much power. Until now. What does that mean for us? Williams asked. It means they see humanity's resurgence as a direct threat to everything they have built. They will not allow us to reclaim our position without a fight. The revelation came too late to prevent catastrophe. Intelligence reports flooded in from across human space. The United Species Alliance had mobilized their combined fleets and was moving toward human territories. But more disturbing were reports of strange ships appearing at the edge of galactic space, vessels with technology that made even ancient human ships look primitive. Admiral Clark received the news while reviewing battle plans aboard his flagship. Sir, we have confirmed sightings of unknown vessels in 17 different systems. They do not match any known species in our databases. Jake Morrison arrived on Clark's ship just as the first attack began. Corvin, Zephyrian, and Nexus fleets struck human colonies simultaneously, believing they were preventing human tyranny. But they had no idea they were being manipulated by the very entities that had destroyed humanity once before. Admiral Clark. We need to evacuate the outer colonies, Jake said, studying the tactical displays. This is not just a war between us and the Alliance. Something else is coming. Clark nodded grimly. I know. Atlas sent us a warning an hour ago. The architects are done hiding. They are preparing to reveal themselves and finish what they started 10,000 years ago. As human fleets moved to defend their colonies, Jake realized that humanity was fighting two wars at once. They faced the combined might of the galactic powers, who feared human dominance. But behind that conflict lurked an older, more dangerous enemy, the architects who had erased humanity from history once before, and would not hesitate to do so again. The question was no longer whether humanity could reclaim its ancient empire. The question was whether they could survive long enough to discover who had stolen it from them in the first place. The Galactic War erupted with a fury that had not been seen in thousands of years. Admiral Ryan Clark's human fleets, equipped with recovered Dominion technology, met the combined forces of the United Species Alliance in battles that lit up entire star systems. Ancient human weapons that fired concentrated dark matter. Beams tore through enemy ships like they were made of paper, but the human forces faced overwhelming numbers. For every alien ship they destroyed, 3 more took its place. The Alliance had mobilized every vessel they could find, driven by fear of human dominance and secretly guided by Architect. Manipulation. Admiral Jake Morrison led a desperate mission toward the galactic core, following coordinates that Atlas had finally revealed. Deep in the center of the galaxy lay the heart of Terra, the ultimate prize, the command center of the original Terran Dominion. If humanity could reach it, they would have access to their complete technological heritage. Jake, this is suicide, Admiral Clark said over the communication link. The entire enemy fleet is between you and the galactic core. We do not have a choice, Ryan, Jake replied from the bridge of his flagship, the recovered dreadnought Sovereign Dawn. If we cannot reach the heart of Terra, humanity will lose this war. The architects are counting on us, being too afraid to try. Jake's fleet consisted of 12 ancient human ships, including the massive Eternal Vigilance commanded by Admiral Beth Anderson. They faced a journey through enemy-controlled space to reach a destination that might not even be reachable. As they approached the galactic core, something unexpected happened. Strange ships appeared on their sensors, vessels with smooth, dark hulls that seemed to absorb light. These were not Alliance ships. They were something else entirely. Admiral Morrison, this is the Prime Architect, came a transmission in perfect human English. Your species has caused enough disruption. Return to your colonies and accept your place as a minor power, or be erased completely this time. Jake stared at the main screen, where a figure appeared that looked almost human, but wrong in subtle ways. The Prime Architect had pale skin, eyes that were too large, and features that were slightly out of proportion. It was like looking at humanity through a distorted mirror. You are the ones who destroyed the Terran Dominion, Jake said. We guided galactic civilization for millions of years, the Prime Architect replied. We maintained balance and order. Your species threatened that balance with your unlimited ambition and refusal to accept limits. We did what was necessary. You erased an entire empire from history. We preserved galactic peace. But you have forced our hand again. This time, we will not make the mistake of leaving survivors. The Architect fleet moved to attack, and Jake realized they were facing technology that made even ancient human weapons look primitive. Architect ships phased in and out of normal space. Their weapons fired beams that could alter the fundamental laws of physics, and their defenses seemed immune to conventional attack. The battle for the galactic core began with humanity at a severe disadvantage. But as they fought their way deeper into architect-controlled space, ATLAs provided Jake with new information. Admiral Morrison, I have located the heart of Terra. It is protected by architect forces, but if you can reach it, the installation contains more than just technology. It houses the preserved consciousness of the original Dominion leadership. What? Does that mean? Jake asked while his ship shook under architect weapons fire. It means the knowledge and wisdom of humanity's greatest leaders from 10,000 years ago is still available. They can provide what we need to defeat the architects permanently. Admiral Beth Anderson brought the Eternal Vigilance alongside Jake's ship, her massive weapons blazing. Jake, my ship can take more punishment than yours. Let me clear a path to the heart. Beth, that is a suicide mission. Maybe, but somebody has to do it. And besides, I always wanted to see what this old ship could really do. The Eternal Vigilance charged forward, its ancient hull absorbing incredible punishment from architect weapons. Beth's ship fired everything it had, clearing a corridor through the enemy fleet that allowed Jake to reach the heart of Terra. The heart was a massive space station, the size of a small moon, covered in crystalline structures that pulsed with ancient power. As Jake's ship docked, he could feel the station coming to life around him. Systems that had slept for 10,000 years awakened at the touch of human hands. In the station's central chamber, Jake found something incredible. The walls were lined with stasis pods containing the preserved consciousness of the Terran Dominion's greatest leaders. As the systems activated, these ancient minds merged with the current human command structure, providing knowledge that had been lost for millennia. "Welcome, Admiral Morrison," said a voice that spoke with the authority of ages. "We are the Council of Terra, guardians of humanity's true heritage. Through you, we will reclaim what was stolen and ensure it is never lost again." The knowledge flowed into Jake's mind. Battle strategies that had conquered half the galaxy, diplomatic wisdom that had united countless species, and technological secrets that could reshape reality itself. But most importantly, he learned the architect's greatest weakness. The architects fear chaos and change, the council explained. They are creatures of rigid order who cannot adapt when their plans are disrupted. Hit them with something they cannot predict, and their entire system collapses. Jake smiled as he understood. The architects had spent millions of years creating perfect, predictable systems. They had erased humanity because humans were too chaotic, too unpredictable to control. That same chaos would be their downfall, working with the heart of Terrace. Vast computer systems, Jake sent new orders to every human ship in the galaxy. Instead of fighting according to military doctrine, they would fight like humans, creative, unpredictable, and willing to take impossible risks. The effect was immediate. Human captains began using tactics that defied logic, ramming ancient dreadnoughts into architect command ships, using terraforming devices as weapons, and coordinating attacks through music and poetry instead of military codes. The architect fleets designed to counter every known military strategy found themselves unable to predict or counter human tactics that made no sense according to their calculations. Their perfect order crumbled in the face of beautiful chaos. The Prime architect's ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light as Admiral Beth Anderson, her ship nearly destroyed, used the Eternal Vigilance's main gun to fire the ship's entire power core as a projectile. The destruction of their leader sent shockwaves through the architect fleet, and their remaining ships began to retreat into the dark spaces between galaxies. With the architects defeated, the United Species Alliance found themselves facing a very different situation. The alien fleets that had been manipulated into war suddenly realized they had been fighting on the wrong side. Emperor Marcus Vex, War Chief Thane, and Prime Director Kane requested immediate peace negotiations. President Williams, now calling, herself Empress of the new Terran Dominion, met with the alien leaders aboard the Heart of Terra. But her terms were not what they expected. "We do not seek to rule over you," she told them. "We seek to protect the galaxy from those who would manipulate it from the shadows. Join us as equals, and together we will ensure that no entity ever again has the power to erase entire civilizations from history." The aliens, freed from architect influence for the first time in millennia, discovered that they actually respected humanity's approach to galactic leadership. Humans did not seek to control other species, but to protect their freedom to develop and grow. Jake Morrison, now Grand Admiral of the Terran Fleet, stood on the bridge of the heart of Terra and looked out at the stars. Human colonies were spreading across the galaxy once again, but this time as liberators rather than conquerors. They carried the banner of a species that had refused to stay forgotten and had proven that some things were worth fighting for. The galaxy had remembered who humanity truly was. More importantly, humanity had remembered who they were meant to be, not rulers, but guardians of freedom in a universe that had forgotten what true strength looked like. The age of amnesia was over. The age of human guardianship had begun.